Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing Demons of the Punjab from the Series 11 run of episodes. However, as much as I am not a fan of Series 11, as I do consider it the weakest series or season of Doctor Who ever, Demons of the Punjab, I remembered on my first watch through when the episodes were originally airing, was one I liked, not just for that series, but one that I just genuinely liked. I thought it was really good. And on rewatch, I like it even more. It actually is a really good episode. What really occurs to me that I didn't know at the time is how much it very much is a First Doctor era style historical. Because when I originally watched this in 2018, I'd only seen like maybe 5, 6 Hartnell episodes. I wasn't very familiar with his era. I mentioned early on in the life of this channel that he was kind of the one spot in Classic Who that I wasn't overly familiar with. And a lot of you guys sending stuff in has enabled me to see a lot of his era to where I've seen almost all of his era now. It really becomes apparent to me, being so familiar with the First Doctor's era, how much Demons of the Punjab kind of harkens back to that and the rules of that era. Because the First Doctor's era was very much in the style of, one, doing a lot of historicals, and two, it was very much into the idea of time being immutable, that you're not able to change time, and that things have to play out the way they're supposed to play out. The First Doctor, of course, gives that very famous speech to Barbara in the Aztecs about you cannot change history, not one line. You know, I know, believe me, I know. That whole speech is easily my favorite part of the Aztecs and the scene that got me really wanting to watch the Aztecs. And the First Doctor's era was very much of that. Reign of Terror is the same way, of them just being thrust into historical events and having to get out of them. Not trying to save the day necessarily, especially not on a big scale, but to get away. You see that in the Crusade as well. They get dropped into an event and then they have to get out of it. And that's kind of what's going on here, because the Doctor ends up in a situation that's dealing with a fixed point in time. So she can't save the day. They're just more there as observers, what ultimately ends up being observers. The episode tricks you into thinking they're there to save the day, but really they're more there just as observers to the events that happen, much like the First Doctor era, which I enjoy. One of my favorite parts of the episode is the guy who plays the older brother, who I guess technically would be the middle brother. I cannot remember his name already. He's good. The one brother who's getting married to Yaz's Nan. The actor playing him is phenomenally good. My favorite part of the episode. He just nails every scene he's in, every piece of dialogue he has, which he's written pretty well too. But I just like him as an actor. The speech when he's talking with Graham and Ryan right before he's about to get married, he talks about how, everybody's lived here for decades working side by side, and now, they're letting people get them whipped up into a frenzy, into a mob. The way he delivers those lines is phenomenal. And then the bit at the end when he's confronting his brother and the other people on horseback, he is just magnificent in that. Like when the one guy cocks the gun at him and he just looks up the gun, he's like, really? We fought together at Cyan. We made a good team. Just that, how just incredulous he finds that the guy would hold a gun on him simply because he doesn't want to let them pass to harm the other people. Because originally the group there is not after him. He's fine. He just won't get out of the way, so they turn on him. The way he plays that scene is wonderful. He's my favorite part of the episode. Now, the actor playing the younger brother, the one that wears the glasses sometimes, he's really good too. The actor playing him does a good job of, you very much get that, since his older brothers weren't there, of course, he got caught up in the rhetoric and what was happening and believing the mindset of those other people and what they're doing. And then he probably also has a grudge because his oldest brother didn't come back from the war. His oldest brother died in the war, which is the one he seems to have respect for because it happened when he was young. He was too young to go fight himself. And so he only has the memory of that oldest brother, which might not be accurate to how the oldest brother was. And he doesn't like his older brother, the one that did come back, has been a disappointment to him. And the actor playing him does a good job of conveying all those emotions in the scenes that he's in. The woman playing Yaz's Nan, both versions, the old and the younger, both of the actors there do a good job. The one playing the older version of her Nan, even though we don't get her much, she's good. She does her scenes well. And then I really liked the actress playing the younger version of her Nan, which, to be honest, is kind of a problem with the episode, because I find Yaz's grandmother more interesting than Yaz. That's not a good thing. I feel like the younger version, especially of her grandmother, has this nice fire to her. You know, she seems made of sterner stuff. And I just like her dedication and her commitment and her willing to see things through and not letting things stand in her way. I like that. The actress playing that does that really well. Again, to the effect that I feel like she's more of an interesting character than Yaz is, which isn't necessarily a good thing. Whittaker herself, for the most part, is actually pretty good in this. And the 13th Doctor, for the most part, there's one glaring problem, we'll get to that, is fine. She feels a lot more like Tennant or Smith here, and I'm not one of those people that thinks, you know, Whittaker's always doing a Tennant and Smith impersonation. But it does feel like her doctor here draws more from them, like the bit when she's rattling off all the things she needs in rapid succession. And I'm going to need this, and a biscuit. I like biscuits. It very much reminded me of Matt Smith in the opener for Series 6 when he's like, I'm going to need 3 chompers ready to mobilize, and a fez. It very much reminded me of that. And there was a couple other times when she did things that made me think more of Tennant or Smith and that the more modern Doctor style. Now, in a sense, that works because it makes her feel like the Doctor. I do like the bit when she tells Yaz to tread carefully, tread carefully because you're treading on your own history, warning her that if you're not careful, you could basically talk yourself right out of existence. The way Whittaker does that part is really good, and it comes across really well. Be careful what you do here, or you can erase yourself. I like that the Doctor is there to help. She's trying to figure out what's going on. Once she realizes the aliens are there and realizes they're an assassin group, she's trying to protect people and help people. She's very much feeling like the Doctor doing what the more kind of hyperactive doctors do. I could picture Smith or Tennant doing the same thing. So I enjoy that. But then there's that marriage ceremony speech she gives. That's where it falls apart for her. That's when I'm watching the episode and I'm reminded, oh yeah, it's Whittaker. Whittaker has I like the way another YouTuber phrased it once. He called it her try-hard speeches, where she goes to give this great speech and she just doesn't sell it for me. The speech to me is not a good speech. You could be the most powerful people on the planet, maybe in the universe. And I'm like, no, that's dumb. That's stupid. That's very stupid. And then just Whittaker doing the speech, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't sell it to me. If you had Capaldi giving it, it might have worked, but Whittaker giving it, it just falls flat. And then she uses the sonic on the rope and undoes the rope, because the sonic can hack the fingers of gods and it can untie a rope, but it still doesn't work on wood. Well, it just really does whatever the plot needs it to do, doesn't it? Maybe they were right to get rid of it in Classic Who. And she does use the sonic a lot in this episode, like a lot. I'm like, ooh. But I do, again, overall enjoy the 13th Doctor in this one. That one part aside, especially once she realizes she can't stop things, that it is a fixed point. The interesting thing is, on one hand, this could have been a pure historical, which would be probably the first pure historical we've gotten in modern Who. Probably the first pure historical we've gotten since Black Orchid. But it occurred to me that the aliens need to be there, because there's a reason why the aliens are there. And the main reason they're there is that they're a red herring. They are there to completely trick you and to keep your attention focused on them, so you're not paying attention that this is actually a Hartnell historical style story where time is locked. Because the aliens, again, the Doctor, the first time you see them, They look kind of evil-like, because you only see a little bit of them, and they look evil-like in the shadows. And then when you do see them, they look all evil-like. And then the Doctor finds out what race they are and that they're assassins. And so it becomes the Doctor's here to save the day and to stop the assassins and do what the Doctor does. I save people. So it's interesting. It's a nice twist when you find out the aliens aren't assassins anymore, that their world was destroyed, and that now they just go around witnessing, people who were forgotten, people who have the lesser known deaths, so that somebody knows and that there's a record of it. Because that's when you start realizing, okay, if they're not the antagonist of the story, what is the antagonist of the story? And then you realize history, actual factual history, sadly, is the antagonist of the story. Because it's another thing is that how this harkens back to Hartnell Doctor Who is one of the original goals of Doctor Who was to teach children about history, about historical events in stories like the Aztecs and the Crusades and the Reign of Terror. And that's, again, what it's doing here. Now, I wasn't very familiar with these events, with what partition, when Pakistan was formed, and when the line was set up in 1947. I wasn't familiar with that. So it's an interesting historical lesson. I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't as familiar with that as other more famous parts of history, like World War I or World War II, or the British Civil War, the American Civil War. So it's interesting to pick something that might not be as well-known event in history, and to showcase that, and then realizing that the antagonists were the antagonists in real life, that it's neighbor turning against neighbor. Some of the Muslims turning against some of the Hindu, people not liking people they've been neighbors with for decades, but because an imaginary line got drawn, suddenly they're enemies. Much like some of the stuff going on in World War II in Germany, back during the 30s and 40s, when neighbor kind of turned on neighbor. And so the episode does a good job with the alien assassins at keeping our attention away from that. Now, we get little hints of it with the younger brother, with stuff going on with him, about him having, reading pamphlets and having foregone knowledge, and him not being quite happy with the marriage. It does drop the little hints there. But mostly it keeps us focused on the 13th Doctor stopping the assassins, because that's what Doctor Who tends to be about these days. So when it actually pulls the rug out from under us and we find out, no, we're in, an episode of Doctor Who basically from 1964 in a way, classic Doctor Who in a sense, that we are in this type of episode where time is immutable and where this is a fixed point in time and where the Doctor cannot save Prim. Is that his name, Prim? Can't save him, and he is fated to die here. And that basically the Doctor just has to watch and see what happens. And that's a nice twist. It's a really good twist, and we don't see that a lot. And I like how clever the episode was with that. And the Doctor's sad acceptance of what has to happen, that she can't stop, that she can't fix everything. And at least this Doctor, unlike some Doctors, realize she can't stop. Where Tennant sometimes, I can do anything. Or even Capaldi, I can do anything. And you see how that bit both of them in the rear ends. She doesn't fight against it. She realizes that she can't do anything. And that this has to happen not only because it's a fixed point, but because if it doesn't happen, even Yaz won't exist. The ripples will be wide, Every action creates ripples. As the Seventh Doctor famously said. So I like that. And then, of course, we get the ending part with Yaz and her grandmother. And that was a really nice scene as well. A couple odd points. Let's nitpick it. The scene when Graham hugs Prim, like right before he gets married, that's a little weird. Like this guy you barely know is choking up like he's about to cry. Of course, Graham knows Prim's fate at that point, and he gives him a hug, and the Prim guy's just kind of like, okay. Now that's a little weird. I mean, I don't know. It just seems a little odd. The big plot issue, though, is when the holy man gets murdered. And we don't know how he got murdered. We think maybe the aliens did it. Maybe it was the purple dust on him. Just to find out he got shot by the younger brother. I'm sitting there going, nobody noticed a bullet hole? It said he shot him with the older brother's gun. No one noticed a bullet hole? All that time when the Doctor's scanning him? Did he die by this? I don't know. What killed him? I don't know. Was it the green dust? I don't know. Nobody notices the bullet hole or the blood everywhere. Which, I mean, you can't, because if you see the bullet hole, was it the aliens? No, it couldn't have been the aliens. They wouldn't have shot him with an old-style gun. Had to be someone besides the aliens. But we can't have the reveal yet that it wasn't the aliens, so they have to just conveniently not see the bullet wound. It's an exhaust port-sized plot hole, honestly. But I'm willing to overlook it because I like the rest of the story. The incidental music is also really good. As I mentioned in Can You Hear Me, it's not as epic and memorable as Murray Gold's stuff, which is amazing. You know, Murray Gold's stuff will make you want to buy the soundtrack. You'll hum the tunes in your head. Now, the guy who does the music in Whitaker's era does it more low-key. It's definitely more subtle. It's there, but it's more like it's subconsciously affecting your mood. You know, if it's supposed to be a scarier scene, it'll, you know, subconsciously have you more tense, or if it's supposed to be an action one, it'll subconsciously kind of get you more excited. If it's supposed to be an emotional one, it'll affect that too. Like the music that was playing when Yaz is talking with the older version of her grandmother at the end, the incidental music right there fits it perfectly, and I found myself being very emotionally invested in that scene. And part of it, I noted as I was listening to it, was the music was really well done. So I do want to say that I do like the incidental music in this. Now, that's two pretty good reviews I've done of Whitaker stories lately. It's not that I'm coming around to the Whitaker era. It's simply the fact that the episodes I'm going back to rewatch are episodes of her era I actually liked the first time. Prowl will not be reviewing Arachnids in the UK anytime soon, as I'm pretty sure forcing somebody to watch that violates the Geneva Convention. Trust me, if anyone ever needed to torture me for stuff, that's all they'd have to do. All right, talk. No. Put in the Blu-ray of Arachnids in the UK. I'll talk. What do you want to know? Or any of the other. I have been thinking about watching the Tsunami Conundrum or whatever it's called. I don't really like that one, but I have been thinking about giving it a rewatch. It's more just that as much as I don't like Series 11, there are about 3 episodes in it I think are good. I don't think any of them are essential. I don't even think any of them are classics, including this one. But I do think they're really good, and that's, of course, The Ghost Monument, which I really like, Kerblam, which I think is good, and Demons of the Punjab, which I think is good. It's nice, again, now that I've seen so much of the First Doctor's era, to feel like I'm watching something closer to a First Doctor story than Doctor Who has done in a very, very long time. And I like that. The fact that Doctor is in a circumstance, again, where time is not mutable. And she just at the end of the day ends up being a bystander to the events that happen instead of being the savior of the day, which the episode tricks you into thinking she's going to be. And I enjoy that. I do like that a lot. So I did enjoy Demons of the Punjab. The guest cast were really good. I think the companions are fine. And 13, again, for the most part, is good. Except for that scene at the end with the speech that doesn't work. So, that is my thoughts on Demons of the Punjab. Have you seen this episode? And if you haven't, if you have seen it, when was the last time you watched it? Maybe just do a rewatch. And if you've never seen it, give it a shot. It is one of those that is on my approved list for someone who is not keen on the 13th Doctor or her era as a whole. So, I want to know what you think of this episode. Comment down below and let me know. Other things to do. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out, and I certainly appreciate it. My goal in 2023 is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and we are well on our way there, sitting at about 930 right now. So if you enjoy my content and never hit that subscribe button, go ahead and click that button for me, and that like button. I appreciate it. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. There's a link to that down in the description below. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month. $2 a month. It does help me keep the bills paid, especially lately, and I certainly appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I do appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, Doctor Who related or otherwise. It is a sci-fi channel after all. And a link to my Amazon wish list is down there as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.